I'm Paul de Andrade, and my company is Studio Kestrel. We're a full-service interior design company. We operate between Miami, New York City, and the Hamptons. And our sort of aesthetic is organic modern, which tends to involve lots of natural materials, organic curves, and sustainability. We do full-service interior design. Sometimes the projects are lighter, and we'll do more paint and wallpaper projects, as we call them, which includes furniture as well. And then sometimes they're full-scale renovations or builds. We traditionally unfortunately have used a lot of softwares because it tends to be who you bring on board and what they're used to, which isn't ideal. We've been grappling with that and how to bridge the issues between things like AutoCAD and SketchUp and Rhino and whatever. And then Sarah, who's on our team, had been using Rayon in addition to other softwares, and she really liked it. So she kind of said, "Oh, you should check it out." So I went down, went to the website and I started playing with it, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." It's really sort of streamlined thing. It's made it easier. It's made our presentations more attractive. And overall, it's a software that's easy enough to learn that I was able to bring my whole team onto it, rather than, a lot of the other softwares, which if I said, okay, let's all start working in AutoCAD, there would be this huge learning curve. And even then, I don't have the capacity to train them in that. So people would probably do the bare minimum and then kind of go and make mistakes and take a long time to do things, etc. Whereas in Rayon, we're already collaborating in the cloud, which is amazing. We leave comments on the floor plans. Like I said, we have very, very intuitive plans, which are much easier for the client to decipher, because before we had these sort of stick model ones that it's fine for architectural purposes, but it doesn't really mean much to them when we're showing them in a design presentation.
How would you describe your design style or approach?
So our design style, it's quite multifaceted. It's a little bit different from maybe the way that other designers work. But rather than imposing out a specific aesthetic on our clients, what we do is we have a very, very comprehensive onboarding portion to each design project. We have lots of questionnaires that we send out. We sort of sit with them and we say, hey, what makes you tick? What are your favorite, colors? What are your, what kind of things do you want to have in your house? How does your family live? Is comfort the most important thing? Is aesthetics? Do you want everything to be, bright and airy, or would you like it to be a little bit more moody and colorful? For example, right now I have a client and she really likes cool colors, which isn't typically my cup of tea. It's all sort of gray and blue and things like that. But it's more important for me, for the client to have a home at the end of the day that they love and that really makes them feel good. So first we establish that. And then after that, we use a lot of our sort of core principles and we apply it to their tastes. On top of that, a lot of the business is based on feng shui. And I think a lot of people in the US have this sort of hokey idea towards feng shui where you put tchotchkes in the corners and there's certain plants that you use and don't. But realistically, the historic background of feng shui is very, very scientific. And it has a lot to do with, how we react to things as human beings, and what makes us feel safe, what makes us feel. And so, the way that you flow through an apartment as you're living there, the way that light interacts with the space, things like that. That's really, really integral to the way that we design.
What's your typical design process?
So our typical design process, as I mentioned, we kind of send out lots and lots of questionnaires to the client. In the beginning, we have a week of onboarding. And at the beginning of a project, I'll have a few meetings with the client. And the most important one is the design direction meeting, which is our sort of, a session where we look over different materials. We look at different space planning options for the home. We talk about what their preferences for colors and feel and things like that. If they have a family, how do they plan to live in the space, and what are some features that we need to integrate? And then we have the site survey. And the site survey is basically where my team goes there. We build out a pretty rigorous set of standards. So they kind of show up at the site. They have all these checklists. They go through. They have to get every measurement. They have to document all the light switches, the J boxes, air conditioning vents, all that kind of stuff. So that now we can turn around and we can build the entire home in our software, which is what lets us work remote, because we rarely have to go back and do site visits, which is very different from obviously the traditional way that people did interior design, where you're kind of constantly on site, constantly at shops and things like that. We build out a really robust digital model. And then after that, we can furnish it, and we can apply layers, and we can do elevations and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how we start our projects.
How did you get started in interior design?
So when I was young and I was in high school, I thought I wanted to be a sculptor. I really like creative stuff. I love painting. I love sculpting. I love anything, that I sort of use my hands to do. But as I was kind of approaching college time, there was a lot of turmoil. I kind of moved out and moved around the country a little bit. But my parents wanted me to go to school, and I tried sculpting for a little while, but it didn't work out. And so I thought that I wanted to have something really, really, really solid. And at the time, healthcare and technology was the big one, which, to an extent, still is. But I thought, why don't I combine those and just get a really practical degree? Because that's what they tell you to do when you're in high school and when you're in college in America. And so I went and I got studied to be a biomedical engineer. I broke my neck to do it because it's not really something that I innately am good at or innately gravitate towards too. And so I got the degree, and then I realized that I hated it. I did a fellowship at Harvard. I did a research position at Phillips Labs. I did research at Georgia Tech. So I didn't just do the degree and then kind of give up. I actually went and worked in the field, and I was like, no, I can't do this. At one point I was doing nanotechnology research in a clean room with a full body suit and a helmet on. And I was like, this is not for me. So then I got on a bicycle. I traveled and I rode a bike from the US to Argentina, which took a year and a half, kind of doing some soul searching. And I was teaching English along the way. And that was, really an amazing trip, and it really changed my life. But then it was kind of time to come back to the US, and I thought, God, what am I going to do now? So I came back to New York, and I ended up bartending for a few years, because naturally that's what you do when you're an engineer. And in the meantime, I decided to go back to school for journalism. So I went to Columbia University. I was studying journalism, and then that industry kind of was falling apart. And I went, oh, great, wrong place, wrong time. So then I had to kind of pivot again, and I was just looking at job postings online, because at that point I was like, well, I don't really know if I want to pursue a career in either of the things that I spent all this time studying. And I found a job posting for an interior design company that did luxury real estate stagings as well in New York City. It was a super, super small company. And I applied for an internship, and then they said when I went in, they're like, wow, you're way too qualified to be an intern. We're going to make you a project manager. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. But I also had no idea what I was doing. So I basically went in, they put me in charge of, I had 1 day of training, and then they put me in charge of a project the next day. And I just showed up and I was like, all right, well, let me figure this out. So I did my own psych survey. I measured everything. I documented everything. And then, kind of self-taught a lot of to a large extent. And I fell in love with it. And then the company grew and grew and grew. It became a little bit more corporate and a little bit more faceless. And at that time I said, forget it, I'll start my own company. And so that's how I started Studio Kestrel.
What features of Rayon made you decide to start using it for your design project?
There was a bunch of different features about Rayon that attracted me to it. One is it's incredibly simple and intuitive. And that meant that, like I mentioned before, I could onboard my entire team to it. Everybody would be on the same page. We could do training sessions. The training sessions were simple and straightforward, so I knew exactly what everybody would know how to do, and we could make sure that they knew how to do everything that we would be doing on a regular basis. Visually, it was beautiful. It's already, we're producing plans that are much more attractive than what we were producing in AutoCAD, much more attractive than what we were producing in SketchUp. And realistically, 90% of our work is in 2D. And I think for a while I had one guy working in SketchUp, and it was, it seemed very logical to be able to build in 3D, but the visuals weren't robust enough for us to get client buy-in. We would sometimes show them something in SketchUp and they would actually say no to it because the quality was low. And we don't do sort of very standard white walls interior design and geometric. So ours is a little bit more curvy and abstract. So you really have to get it right, because for a lot of people to wrap their mind around that kind of design, because most people don't think about design that way, you have to have great visuals or you have to have great layouts. And I found that with Rayon, even just doing it in 2D in that really nice visual form, either through floor plans or that plus elevations, was actually better and helped the client understand it more. And then we could just use mood boards, or we could use visuals on the side to accompany that, rather than trying to do this whole kind of silly 3D model that doesn't sell it. That with respect to Rayon, one of the great things is working in the cloud, because it drives me crazy to have this thing where you're working on a design project for 1 year, 2 years, and suddenly you end up with 3,000 different versions of the files. You know what I mean? And yes, we have to have some static versions of the files that we download, but overall, the fact that you can work in the cloud, a planning basis is such a game changer.
How has Rayon improved your design process compared to the tools you've used previously?
So, Rayon has literally made it so everything that we do is so much faster than it was before. At one point in time, I would send somebody off to do something in AutoCAD or Revit or SketchUp, and they would be gone for hours, days, weeks, putting something together. And I would be like, is it done yet? Is it ready? And then if there was some kind of an issue with it, or if it needed revisions, then, I have to somehow verbally tell them all of these things, or I have to, do a PDF and then do my markup on it, which is annoying. Rayon, it's kind of like, okay, I need you to go move this wall, and I need you to add a window, and I need you to, here, let's do a quick furniture mock-up, and all those things are fast. It's agile. It happens, in like a matter of, minutes or hours, which is amazing. If I want to give them feedback and I want to say, you know what, I don't really like where we have the windows in this, or how about this, let's rotate the sofa. It takes like 5 seconds to do it. I can leave my comment directly on the floor plan or on the elevation. Or if we had to do a mood board, I just put my comment directly there. They know exactly what I'm talking about. They can respond to me. They can let me know what it's done. They can let me know if they have an alternative idea. And that's amazing.